Hello everyone, I wanted to share my tutorial on making these flat center zip bags. They are lined, they have fully enclosed seams, and they are surprisingly easy to make. The ones that I'm making finish at about 9 by 6 inches, but you could really make the measurements whatever you want, and I think that they would still work perfectly. They don't need to be super precise, and it's only two pieces of material, your exterior and then your lining. It's just one big loop basically. Um, I originally wanted to make this style bag to accommodate my new addiction, which is Color Street nail strips, and they hold a ton, by the way, if you are looking for your own storage bag. But I could not find a tutorial that showed you how to do enclosed seams. And maybe there's one out there, but couldn't find it, so I decided to figure it out myself, and then I figured why not share the tutorial for anyone else who might be interested. So today I'm going to be making these two bags. This one is vinyl and this one is a cotton. I like to do mine in vinyl personally just because I think it looks nice. It's a nice weight, but this is my first cotton one. I think it's actually turned out great. So if you have any cute cotton prints, you want to sell yourself a little bag. They also make great, pencil pouches, cosmetic pouches, whatever. And just a quick disclaimer as well, I made this tutorial to be very beginner friendly, which means I go over steps extremely thoroughly. I don't fast forward. It's just a step-by-step real-time video uh, for people who might find that helpful. I personally like videos like that, but if you are someone who is a more experienced sewist, you're just trying to get the information to make the bag. You don't need all the extra little tidbits of info or repeated information or repeated steps. You can always fast forward and you should still be able to pick up the instructions. But just in case you're annoyed by extra rambling or chatty videos. That's just something to be aware of. But let's get into the materials we need to make these. You are going to need a lining material. And I'm using quilting cotton. That's what I've used for mine. You could try waterproof canvas. Um, you might possibly have an issue with it being with that extra thickness it'd be harder to turn, but I do intend to try at some point. um, so you want to cut this 10 inches by about 13 inches, so that is your lining piece, and then you have your exterior. I like to use vinyl for mine, and you cut it the same as your lining. 10 inches by about 13 inches. Why am I saying about 13 inches? That's because I actually cut this 10 inches by like 12 and 5/8, and that is an oddly specific measurement, you might say, but that is because the rolls of vinyl tend to come, they say they're 12 inches, but I've found they're actually between 12 and 13 inches. So rather than cut my 13 inches up in the length and waste a strip of vinyl on the side, I just cut my 10 inches up and just do a strip, and this ended up being 12 and 5/8 wide. And these really don't need to be precise, so that especially that small amount of extra length was fine to exclude. So that is why I'm saying about. But if you're not working with vinyl, or if that's not a thing, just cut it 10 by 13 inches. So exterior. Maybe you don't like working with vinyl, you don't want to use it, you want to use your cute cotton, you can absolutely use cotton for your exterior as well. But then in that case, you'll also want to cut a piece of interfacing. I've already fused mine on, but I have used woven fuse 2, and I'll put a link in the description where you can find that. Um, but it's, for all intents and purposes, it is comparable to Pellon SF101, but I think you could get away with using, many different types. All I was doing is adding a bit of body, so it's not super thin and flimsy, but it's not stiff. So there's that. This is going to be my lining for that one. And again, they're all, the lining and the exterior are cut the same measurement, 10 by 13. And then you are going to need your zipper. So I prefer using zipper tape by the yard. Love the stuff, highly recommend. I actually made a video to show you how to properly insert your zipper pull on it without having any bulging on the side. So I'll put that in the description as well. You can go check it out. You technically just need the length of your short edge of your material, which is 10 inches, but I like to cut mine just like 11 inches, so you have a little bit of extra on each end. You trim it off after, so not a big deal. So you basically just need 10 inches of active zipper tape, but also I am going to show you how to use, if you don't have zipper tape by the yard or you just don't like it, I'm going to do a regular zipper as well. And these are the ones that just, you buy, you see most often. They're a certain specific length when you buy them. They have the stopper at the end so they don't open completely. I'll show you what that looks like to attach. The process is going to be very slightly different than when I'm sewing with the zipper tape by the yard. So just to give people a visual who are going to be working with that instead. And then also, I personally love Wash Away Wonder Tape. This stuff is great. If you're not familiar, it is a 1/4 inch wide double-sided tape that washes away, it disappears when you wet it, basically. So it washes out when you wash whatever you're making. But if you're not going to wash it, I'm not going to wash these. It's not a big deal for it to be left in, and you can sew through it with no issues. It doesn't gum up your needle or your thread. So I like to use it to attach my zipper. I think it makes it so much easier to hold it in place. But again, that's just kind of that's an extra. This stuff is, once I started using it, I could not stop. Can't stop, won't stop. So let's get into our first steps, and that's going to be attaching the zipper to our bag. So we're going to attach the zipper to the bag. My first note about the zipper, when you're using zipper tape by the yard, I used to, before I attached the zipper, I would put the zipper pull on, and then I realized it was 100% better to attach the zipper pull at a later point. We're not closing off the edges of the zipper yet, so it just makes things a whole lot easier in the end, and it ends up looking a lot nicer. So if you're using zipper tape by the yard, putting our pull away for a minute. And then again, my Wash Away Wonder Tape, it's amazing. I'm going to line that up with the edge of the fabric, and I'm going to put it along the entire length. You're going to see me actively doing every step of this except maybe pressing, just so I don't have to move the camera over there. But put it on the entire length. Just kind of give it a little extra press there. And then you need to take the paper backing off, just to give me something to talk about while I do this. I've found that the wash away wonder tape I get from wawak.com is so much better than the stuff I've gotten from Joann's. It's like the Joann stuff seems to be like dried out and the paper doesn't want to come off as easily. But okay, so I'm gonna now, so that I put that onto the right side of the exterior fabric, and now I'm going to turn the zipper right side down. So the right sides are facing each other, and I'm going to line it up on that very edge along that 10-inch, along the 10 inches we just applied the tape to. And if you're not using tape, just go ahead and you're going to be pinning this on instead, or clipping, whatever you prefer. Okay, so we got that on there. Now I'm going to grab my lining and I'm going to set that aside, the exterior aside for a sec. And again, this lining, I'm going to go to the 10-inch side, whoops, and apply my wash away wonder tape. Bear with me if you're not actually using wash away wonder tape. This is just an extra step here. Have a drink of your coffee, wine, whatever it is you're drinking over there. And then I'm going to trim, give it a little extra press, and then peel off the backing. Go. And then now I'm going to take this. If you're lining, I mean, I don't really care which is the right or wrong side for this. It's just a solid colored cotton, but you would put your lining, if it had a right side, face down. So it's right sides together with your exterior. And then you want to, if you cut your zipper a little with an overhang, just carefully apply the edge so it lines up with where the exterior is. Just kind of making sure it's even, and then you will put that lining, press it down on the back of that zipper tape. Then I'm sticking the wonder tape. Again, I love this stuff, holds everything really nicely without fuss. So what we have here, our zipper sandwich, we have our lining face down, we have the zipper tape face down, and then we have the exterior material face up. So we're basically sandwiching that zipper in there. And I also like to, of course I don't have my clips right next to me, but I also like to add a few clips to hold this, because the wash by wonder tape isn't like so strong that it doesn't want to, when you're kind of like moving it and stretching it, sometimes we'll want to pull away from the material or whatever it's attached to. So this just gives a little extra security here. There you go. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach my zipper foot. I personally have this one. Just a quick note before we sew the zipper on. I like to sew my zippers so a very small amount of the fabric of the zipper can be seen. So just basically the exterior is butted up really close to the zipper teeth, as seen here, right? But maybe you prefer to use a smaller seam allowance, and then you would have something like this. This is just another project I'm working on. But I believe my seam allowance on this was 1/4 inch. And so you can see the difference. I'll let you decide what kind of seam allowance you want. I'm going to be sewing basically with this foot butted up right against the zipper. You can kind of feel it, um, see the indentation, that bump, and then the way this zipper foot works, it can get really close. But that's completely up to you. It's really not going to make a difference, and that's why these bags are extra great. You don't need a super precise measurement. Like, half an inch, quarter inch here and there will just affect. Again, this is obviously one piece of material, so it'll just be slightly wider of a bag, and you're basically not going to notice it. So do whatever feels right in your heart. Okay? I'm going to do this, something like that. I'm going to zoom us in a little bit. You can get the really, really close look at this. This is the one I'm sewing with vinyl. So I usually turn my like regular seam stitch to like between 3 and 3.5. And let's do it. Let's do it. If you're doing quilting cotton, then just like a 2.5 millimeter stitch length is good. And then I kind of every once in a while I'll check to make sure with my finger that it's lined up against that zipper. And I admittedly sew very slowly. You'll probably see lots of other tutorials where just like spitting it through like a machine gun, but no, I am a bit OCD and I just cannot sew quickly. Alright, get to the end. I'm gonna do a little back stitch. Just there's no funny business. I'm gonna snip my threads here. So I gotta get my little thread basket. Okay. So you can see we did it. I'll show you how close that is. So very close to the zipper teeth when we're gonna flip that. But let me now really quickly stitch that other bag. We're doing two at once here. And I'm going to, since that's the end I'm starting with, I'm gonna unzip this a little bit so I can get in there. Kind of feel where I need to be. It's a little harder when it's unzipped because there's less of a big bump to line it up against. And I'm actually going to turn my stitch length down to 2.5 since this is the fully cotton bag. Alright, here we go. Back stitch at the beginning. And I'm going to, now that we've passed enough of the zipper, I'm going to zip that back up. So I have a kind of a bigger, oops, raise my foot a little bit. Oh no. Wait, hold on. I didn't leave my needle in the fabric. That was touch and go there. Alright, so that's zipped up, out of the way for the rest of it, and then we'll carry on. I'll do a quick back stitch there in case I did something weird when I when I was zipping that. Okay, we have a bit of a different angle here because I moved the camera to see the machine sewing better, but this is, I think you can still see what you need to see. So this is what we just did. It's still closed up from sewing that zipper. So what we're gonna do is open it up, and now we're going to attach the other side of the materials to the zipper. So normally this would be a whole separate piece, but this, since the bag is completely made in one, it has no seams on the edges. So this is how we do our next step. So I'm going to, I think it's easier to work with just the edge. I'm going to kind of roll this up to get it out of the way. So again, opposite short edge. I'm going to apply our Wash Away Wonder Tape, as we did before, to the right side of our exterior. Oh, this is awkward. What's happening? Go. And then pull off the paper backing. And then now we want to get to the other side of the zipper. So I'm basically taking, this is what we just applied the tape to. I'm taking the zipper, right side, and I'm pulling that up, and I am sticking it down to the exterior again. So the other side of the exterior is already stitched on. Now we're placing the edge on this side. So let me, and also be careful because, again, since I cut the zipper tape by the yard a little longer, you want to make sure that you are actually lining up this edge where it hits on the other side. So I use these edges as a guide to kind of make sure I'm in the right zone. Let's re-stick that. Bear with me, guys. Bear with me, guys and gals. Okay, I'm fine enough with how that lines up. And then, of course, you're going to want to do it again for the lining. So we're going to end up with like two weird tunnels here of fabric. But again, let me do this. This is going to be the right side of the lining. It'll make sense to you when you're doing it. But since it's harder for me to show you, since my fabric's solid colored. So attach the right side of your lining to the wrong side of your zipper, as we did in the first step. Again, make sure you're lining it up properly. Matching it to where my exterior is hitting. If you don't nail this lining up 100%, it's gonna be okay. It's going to be okay. Again, we're taking a really large seam allowance, that 1/2 inch, so it'll work out in the end. Okay, finger press, and then I'm going to clip. Let's see, and then I mean, just decide what side you want up when you're sewing this. I think I'm gonna have my exterior side up. So just to be extra clear about this, what I've done is I opened it up, I stuck my exterior right sides to the right side of the zipper, and then I folded up the lining and I stuck the lining right side to the wrong side of my zipper. Pop some clips on here. Okay, you're going to want to sew this with the same seam allowance you stitched the other side of the zipper tape on with. And this is my vinyl one, so I'm going to turn up the stitch length again to between 3 and 3.5 millimeters. And again, I like to butt my zipper foot up against the zipper teeth. That's just the look I prefer. Okay. And I'm pretty sure I said I was going to sew the vinyl side up, and I am clearly not doing that. Doesn't matter, but that's funny. And just make sure you're not catching anything in here or, have any weird wrinkles. Okay. We're going to snip. Snip, snip. Okay. And now our zipper is fully in there, and I'm going to stitch up that other bag real quick with the regular zipper, and then I'll show you what we need to do next. Okay, so if you are not, I'm going to show you specifically what we're going to do with the zipper tape by the yard. Just something to take note of before you flip this to top stitch, but we don't have to worry about that for the one where we use the regular zipper that has the tab. So basically what you're going to do is you're probably going to find it easier to unzip it as much as you can. So it kind of opens it up like that, and then we're just going to pull that open. That one's super easy. You don't have to think about it. Don't have to think about it. And then what we're going to do, now that it's open, is we're going to take it over to the iron and we're going to press the fabric away from the zipper. The teeth on this one are so tiny. We're going to press the fabric away from the zipper, and then we're going to come back to the machine and we're going to top stitch along the zipper. So, I mean, if it makes it easier for you to zip that up again right now, go for it. But then something to do or to note before we do the same for the zipper tape by the yard. Okay, so I go over this in my other, I put out a video just how to put the pull on zipper tape by the yard, but in that video I mentioned that you need to make sure for things to line up properly, and it's extra important because now we have fabric that directly corresponds with the zipper tape and how it was sitting when it was closed. You want to take note of which zipper tooth is at the resting on top of the other. So, sorry, I just want to make sure you can see this. So this one has the left tooth resting on top of the right tooth. You see that? So when we apply the zipper, and also note the way that the teeth are laying, because obviously the other side will look a little different. So this one kind of is slanting down, and this side is slanting up because we're looking at it from the other direction. So on this side, the right tooth is resting on top of the left tooth, and that is exactly how we want this to be sitting when we apply the zipper pull. So it doesn't really matter, just keep note which side you're looking at. You can even, if it helps you, we'll just here, I'll put a little clip on the edge of this side so I remember. So we will apply the zipper pull from this side, and when I do it, I want to make sure that I have the left tooth resting right above the right tooth so everything stays lined up. So now that I've noted that, now that we know to look out for that left on top of right, I'm going to unzip this. We don't have a pull on yet. So completely unzip, then we're going to turn it right side out, and then we are going to this one as well. We're going to press this. Obviously, this is vinyl. I don't recommend pressing on this side, but you can still press or finger press or whatever you need to do depending on the material you're working with. You'll want to just press the fabric away from the zipper so that we can neatly top stitch it. And I used to add the zipper pull right when I sewed on the zipper, so you had it in the mix when you were stitching the zipper on, but then I realized there was no point, and it was just giving me, it's just adding an extra bit of a bulge in the zipper tape portion to work around. Just a normal, I mean, when you have the zipper pull on there, it just adds a whole other little thing. And it ends up, and then you had to, so the issue was you ended up top stitching it like this as it was closed, and then you're feeding it super awkward. It didn't work out. I highly recommend doing it like this. It's possible to do it the other way, but there's actually no point, and it makes it look worse, and your top stitching gets a little wild. So definitely recommend doing it how I'm suggesting. I'm not gonna show you the pressing because it's over there. It's gonna take a whole camera move. So I'm gonna go press this, and then we'll be back to top stitch. Okay, So we're starting with the vinyl bag. And again, that's where remember we made note of the zipper for when we put the pull on. But this one is nice and easy. It's flat. We've pressed it, so it's gonna be sitting all right when we top stitch. This one's just no fuss. So just get in there. Just do your preferred top stitching width. I'm just gonna line the teeth up now to the right side of the foot, the zipper foot, and it ends up about 1/4 inch, maybe a little more, but that's only because the foot I have on. I might do 1/8 of an inch top stitch if I had a different foot on, but I'm turning my stitch length up to 4, and let's get in there. I'm going to do a little back stitch here, and then you can kind of, as you sew, just make sure the lining is not in a weird spot underneath, so you can kind of pull a little bit to make sure everything's all nice and tight. And I just use regular polyester thread for these. Just regular, I don't even know, what is it? I'm using Mara 100 regular thread. I don't use thicker thread that you might see people use in bag making. I do not recommend using cotton, though. Cotton thread will break easily. Okay, we're snipping, and then we flip and do the other side. Just want to snip that. And then, so it's a fairly wide top stitch, but that is it. Then opposite side. And of course, if you have a concern about matching the bottom thread to your lining, you would want to change the bobbin thread for this step to whatever color works best for you. I personally just left white in right now. Okay, then we snip again. All right, so we're done. There it is from the inside. And then we're going to have to flip it to the wrong side to do the next part, but let me finish stitching this other one with the regular zipper before we get into that, and I'll show you what we need to do. And this, so let me zoom out a little bit just so you can see here. This zipper, the regular zipper, obviously does not, it has a stopper, so it does not open all the way, and that is the only reason I did this one as well in the video. Otherwise I would have just stuck to sewing one. So I apologize for anyone who is getting sick of seeing me do stuff twice, but I figured it can't hurt to add more information for beginners. But I'm personally going to, actually haven't done this on one of these ones, but I think it'll be easier to start on the open side of the zipper. And then we'll kind of just have to fuss with it at the end just to get past that point. I'm going to, I think, take off my table here too. I think that might make it easier. And then again, I'm going to line up with the teeth. Let's zoom in again. And I'm going to do a 3.5-inch top stitch. That's generally my standard cotton top stitch length. Honestly, real talk, this top stitching is ridiculously wide for this, so I would probably recommend 1/8 of an inch. This one, it just looks kind of ridiculous. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe I'm just being weird. Let's see. We'll see. We'll find out in the end here in a second. But this is a very healthy top stitch width here. A little too healthy, maybe. Keep my... I'll give it another second here. So right when we get to the end, or about here, I just recommend putting your foot up, making sure your needle's down, and then just zip it a little bit so it's past the foot and the needle. Possibly, if I can do it. Don't accidentally stitch yourself as you're fiddling with this. I'm not sure why this is being extra. There we go. There we go. Okay, so basically, you're going to want to kind of, it gets a little awkward here, so you kind of, it's basically like you want to, it's like you're sewing into it. So put that down and this up, this bottom portion up, and then I think it'll be a lot easier for you. This is why, just side note, this is why I started adding the zipper pull at the end of sewing the zipper tape by the yard, because I was literally top stitching the entire thing this way. So I was like, it was like feeding it into itself. It was super awkward, and the stitching was very crooked at random points. So this isn't so bad though, just right at the very end. We will manage, even though I did actually just have a little weird zigzag there. All right, so snip your threads, take that out of there as you can. Okay, so that is our first side top stitch. It's actually not, it's not so bad, is it? It's not so bad. The width. And then this is a little more awkward, because then you either have to come from this side and kind of have this flipped. I'll do it this way, just so you can see it done. So because I want to use the same guide to line up for the same top stitching, it's a little fuzzy. I'm going to start from the closed end. So I still have the zipper closed a bit here, more than it has to be. And I'm going to, again, line up. We'll do our back stitch a little bit there. And then what you're going to want to do here, make sure to keep your needle down for this. You're kind of going to want to make sure the bottom is not going underneath the needle. So let's see how far we need to take this. Let's go a little bit more towards the zipper. And again, make sure you're not catching the other side of the bag as you're doing this. So whenever you think you can, lift your foot and push the needle back to the stopper. Go. And then I'm going to put my foot down. And then so we have a lot of, let me snip this. We have a lot of clearance here now that the bag's open. But because we had to deal with that closed end, we still have a really awkward, like, kind of on itself situation here. So what I'm going to do is I'm literally going to flip this like inside out. And again, make sure your needle is down so it's holding the fabric during this, and your foot should be down as well. Okay, so now we're basically sewing into a tube. It's awkward. It's a little awkward. Not as awkward as if we were doing it with it closed though. So we can just kind of carry on stitching here, and then as you go, you kind of will pull this up and pull this down, and it shouldn't give you too much of an issue. This will be more awkward with you, I'm not sure where that thread's coming from. This will be more awkward with vinyl if you're using a regular zipper, but if you do that, then I just recommend how we did the first pass coming from the open end. I recommend, if you're not that worried about lining up the top stitch as exactly with, or at least with the same, because again, I'm using my foot, the edge of my foot, as the guide of where I want my top stitching to be. If you have a better eye or whatever, or would just like it to be easier to do, then I recommend coming from the other side again when you're making the second pass on the zipper. And then you'll just kind of have to eyeball it a little more, because you're not going to have the zipper tape on the same side. It'll be on the opposite. So it's not so bad. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing here. So this kind of curls up in the back a little bit, and then we use the hole in the middle to guide this through. So that is why I showed you a regular zipper. You might have wondered why the heck I've been doing two different bags for the same thing, rather. I'm just snipping thread here. We can zoom out again. One more thread to snip. All the little danglies everywhere. Okay. So that is what the lining looks like. We have a fairly wide top stitch there on mine. And then like that. So let me push my machine out of the way again, and then I'll show you how to proceed. So what we should have now, depending on which one you're working with, we have the cotton one where we use the regular zipper that has that tab. We can't open it all the way. We have that. Or if you use zipper tape by the yard, it is currently just flat. It's open. All right, so now this is where we want to deal with the zipper pull. So remember that we noted the left zipper tooth was resting on the right zipper tooth. And I will get closer here for us to really see. And that is where we want it to be, although maybe I stitched mine a little off. But so that is how we want the zipper pull, to go on to our tape, just like how it was when it was closed, to make sure everything stays lined up. So you want to make sure you are literally putting it on the same exact way. So the top left zipper tooth should be resting on the right zipper tooth. So get it on there. Let's see if this is correct. Kind of ease it on. Okay, and we got it. So see how the top left is sitting on the top or on the right one? It's exactly how we want it. So because this is open, completely open, that first time we do this, we want to zip it all the way down and off to close it again. And here's an extra little note. If for some reason, this is a great example because I actually did it. So if for some reason, you see this, your fabric is not lined up properly, like one side is shifted a little bit because you just didn't, it's kind of shifted in stitching or whatever, you can purposefully shift the zipper. And so I'm gonna show you how to do that because mine is actually kind of terrible. Like, look at this side is lower than the right side, and on the top as well. So what I'm gonna do to fix this, and it's nice that we have the option because it is the zipper tape by the yard. I want my right side to come down a tick. So what I want to do is, instead of having that top left zipper tooth, just one above and then the right is sitting under it, I want that right one to, the first one to be sitting underneath the second tooth. So I'm going to open that up so we can work with it. I put it on the left one, so I just kind of hold it there while I get the other side in. And again, I apologize if you really don't care to see this part, but I like to really cover all the steps for people who it might be helpful for. So you can always fast forward if you prefer. So let's see. Let's check if that's going to do it. I think I might have only done one tooth below. Gonna ease it on. Nope, we are right below it again, so I need it underneath the second tooth. And honestly, you don't need to do this. You don't need to do this. If you think I'm being insane, just put your zipper pull on and carry on with your life. Okay, so this is what I was aiming for. See, now we are underneath the second tooth instead of the first one with our right side. And then, see, when I zip it, it lines up better. Then I'm gonna zip it. I'm going to zip it all the way down and off again, and I'm going to start over. And that is because if I don't, there's going to be a bulge on this side because now the teeth are not aligned properly. It's shifted. So there's one extra tooth here that doesn't want to be there. So I'm again going to zip it off, open this up again, and do the exact same thing that I did just a second ago. So I'm going to try to get the right tooth down from the left tooth. Let's see if that does it. Yep, I got it again. So the right tooth, the first right tooth is under the second left tooth. And that, for me, leaves everything lined up. So now you don't have a bulge on your zipper by the yard. There is a little opening, obviously, but that's because you're just forcing a big pull to be in there. So great. Now things are lined up better. You wouldn't theoretically have to do that part. That was a little extra. That was a little extra. So now we need to figure out, I can take that clip off now, and I can zoom back out. Now what we're going to need to do is to flip this. So you want to keep it closed. And we're flipping this back into what it looked like when we stitched it onto the zipper. So we want two like separate tunnels of material, basically. Okay. So we should have this. One with the lining, one with the exterior. And then what we need to do is basically find the halfway point. So unless you don't want the halfway point, that's just another extra note. If you want the zipper to be like shifted to one side or the other, you could just go for it. But I like my zipper to be right in the middle. That's what I'm aiming for. So what you want to do is you now need to, while these are sandwiched together, you want to figure out how to, or where it needs to sit for it to be halfway. So I'm just looking here. I kind of use a ruler to help guide me. So it's about 6 inches, which we knew by the finished size of the bag. 6 inches on this short end. And so we need to figure out where this needs to be right in the middle. And actually, this is about perfect because the very middle of that zipper tab is right on the 3-inch line. So something also before we here, I'm gonna clip this just to hold it in place because it's actually right without having to fuss with it. But I want to make a quick note here. Your zipper is going to open one way and close the other way, obviously. So you want to make a note now of which side is going to be the open and which is going to be the closed. So in theory, I think normal zippers, they're closed when the pull is on the left and they're open when the pull is on the right. So if your fabric isn't like one, I mean, this really doesn't matter because it's just, you know, it's not a design, it's not a print that has a direction. But if that's going to make a difference to you, it's something to note when you're putting your zipper pull on or just when you're putting your zipper on, period. So it opens, from mine here, opens this way. And it's going to be closed on this side. And we're also going to, at this point, snip our extra zipper off if you have any. So let me, again, check this side to find the middle point. I think I could shift it a little bit. And some of you might be more anal about this than others. Just kind of get it lined up as you see fit. And just make sure it's kind of even throughout. So right now I'm just going to clip all of this to hold it together, but we are going to treat these sides differently. But let me just snip the extra tape off here so it's not blocking any view for us. Stringies, and then again I'm going to do it on this side. So for one side, we are going to clip just the entire thing, okay? We're going to clip, pin, whatever, the entire end, all layers together. And that's how we're going to stitch that. We're just going to do one pass. The other end is going to be different. So what we're going to do for the opposite side is we need to leave an opening to turn the bag so that we have the seams enclosed. So for 1/2 of this stitch, and I'll go into this again right before we stitch it, but we're going to, there's a little string there, we're going to sew from the zipper. I like to do from like the edge of the zipper, like the actual zipper tape part. We're going to stitch from here to kind of midpoint all the way to the end through all layers, through lining and exterior. So if you need to put a mark, like, here, let me grab a marking tool here. If you need to put a mark to remind you where you need to start and stop, so I basically will do it here, and that's, as you can see, it's through the edge of the zipper tape too, not just the zipper teeth. So we're going to be going that way through all the layers. But for this side, we are going to treat the lining and the exterior as separate entities, and we are going to stitch them separately. So you're going to separate the lining and the exterior tubes, and then we are going to, I mean, you might not need to pin or clip it, but you're going to, after you've stitched all the layers together on that side, if you need to turn it, go ahead and turn it. And then from the stitch line, basically meeting as close as you can to meeting the point that you started on the zipper, you're going to stitch through the exterior. But then we will not be stitching the lining closed. We will leave that side open, and that is how we will turn the entire bag. Oh, and another thing to note before I go crazy here is you do want to open your bag a little bit. Open your bag so that you can turn it when we get there. And by that I mean open your zipper. Open your zipper, okay? So we'll do it again with this one. I'm going to zip it. Okay, so it might be easier. I don't know. But if it helps you, this is just a note. Since this zipper, again, obviously opens all willy-nilly, it might possibly be easier for you if you make sure your zipper is actually in the bag portion and not outside the seam allowance. Do a quick basting stitch to tack it closed, so when you have to unzip the zipper, it's not actually opening up the end and making it just a whole kind of separate situation for you to deal with. So I actually do recommend doing that. And I'm going to, let me go do that real quick because it'll be easier to manhandle it, and then I will come back and once again show you how to pin everything, and then we'll go on to stitching it. Okay, so we did a bit of just a quick rough tack job there just to keep it closed so that when we open the zipper, the bag is still in one tube piece. But we do want to flip it again. So it ends up like the other one. And we want it to have 2 separate tubes. So we have the lining separate and then the exterior. And then again, we want to center the zipper on there, so it'll be about 6 inches. So we want the zipper, the middle of the zipper to hit like at the 3 inches mark here. So it might take a little bit of adjusting. I need to go a little to the right. Mine, once you get one end, it tends to make doing the other side easy. Fairly easy. Okay, so I feel okay about that. So I'm going to clip. If I can grab one of these. Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm going to clip the end. Okay, and you don't have to cut that extra zipper tape off yet. You can do it later, or you can do it now. I mean, you don't technically have to do it at all, I suppose, if you don't want to. Let me just make sure I'm feeling good about this. Okay, let's check the other side. Lying flat. Sometimes you only have to adjust the lining or the exterior separately. Okay, that looks pretty good. So I'm going to make sure one side of that is together. And then again, make sure your zipper is open, or at least open enough to be able to turn the bag. Okay, so I'm gonna treat, which is gonna be my first side here. I always stitch all the layers together first. So let's call this our closed end. And I'm gonna go ahead and snip this. I'm just gonna get it out of the way. Oh my gosh, goodbye. Goodbye clip. Okay, so we did that side, and then again, remember, figure out where the edge of your zipper tape is. That's where we're going to stitch starting from, and then all the way to the other end through all the layers. And again, let me just finish that off and snip the excess tape. Okay, and then again, we need to separate the lining and the exterior. So we're not stitching this side of the lining closed, but we are going to be stitching the exterior shut. Okay, then this is basically going to be our final sewing step here. So let me take us over to the machine and I'll show you what we need to do. Alright, so this is going to be our first end where we stitch through all the layers. So we have our exterior tunnel, our lining tunnel, and they're flattened. The zipper, you can't see it on this one, but the zipper's in the middle. And then using a 1/2 inch seam allowance, that's for me, that's this little blue marker. Oops, bumped the camera. Using a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and remember to adjust your stitch length if necessary. I'm going to go to between 3 and 3.5. Since this is the vinyl one, you're going to stitch through all those layers. 1/2 inch seam allowance. Okay, make sure if you are sewing, if you happen to be sewing a, metal zipper, or just be mindful as you stitch across the zipper. Maybe you need to take it slow, and then make sure I can feel my zipper pull here. Make sure you're not going to break a needle or do anything crazy. And then we finish sewing across this entire end. I do a little back stitch at the end, and then we snip. And there we go. If you want to, you can trim your seam allowance or whatever. I don't really bother. But so this is the end. This is the side that gets a little trickier. So we're going to ignore this first part for a minute. I'm just gonna clip them together just for now, real quick. But we're gonna start. We marked where the zipper starts. So I'm going to, again, 1/2 inch seam allowance. I'm going to line us up where we marked. And I'm going to backstitch a little. And we're going to stitch across the other portion of this through all the layers. Backstitch. Okay, so what do we have left here? Get these threads out of the way. So what we're left with at this point is basically half, a little less than half, because we did cover the zipper. We have the exterior separate and the lining separate, and they're still unstitched. So what we need to do, oh, that looks great. Let me just kind of clean that up a little bit. What we need to do is to move the lining out of the way while stitching the exterior closed. So you can see here, maybe you can, you can just see the stitching from the other side, right there. And we want to start right at that point to finish closing up the exterior. So I'm going to make sure to line up at 1/2 inch seam allowance. I'm coming down like right on that point. And I'm going to start stitching. I'm going to back stitch a little bit there too. Make sure, you honestly make sure that's secure. So, and there we go. And at this point, I don't think we need to do the other bag to show you that step. It's exactly the same as this one. So I'll just get into turning this bag. So let's get the machine out of the way for our last bit here. All right, we have 2 nearly completed bags. I stitched this one up off camera, but both of these we have a hole left in the lining. I can get my finger in that one. And that is where we will be turning the bags. So this half we stitched across all layers. These were separate, lining still as a hole. So I'm going to do the vinyl one first here. So get into that lining, and we're going to turn it inside out. We need to feed all of that out of this little opening. Depending on the material you used, it may be super easy, it may be a struggle, but you will be able to do it if you put your mind to it. Is there anything more awkward than watching someone turn something in a video? It's just takes a minute, but I personally like seeing how stuff is actually done when I'm not super experienced, which is probably why I'm watching the video in the first place. So this is the style video that I prefer. I'm sure it's not for everyone, but okay, we've almost completed phase 1 of the bag birthing. So you'll start to see the lining almost turned that through, and then now that we have that out of there, we just need to, you can kind of open your zipper a little more if you need to. Then we just turn it fully to the exterior, and you can see, oops, where's the lovely enclosed seams. That was our hole that we turned it through. Whoa! Careful not to punch yourself in the face when you're doing this. It can be a little touch and go. Okay. So, some of my corners are a little weird still, but I'll fix those in a second, but we did it. We did it. Let me get, it helps to have a turning tool. Some of you might have this sort of guy. I'm not 100% sold on this style turner because it has such a sharp end sometimes. You can accidentally poke through the corners too aggressively, even when you're not doing it that hard. So my preferred turner is a toothpick, a chopstick, I should say. And then sometimes it helps here. So find your opening and then enter into the bag as necessary to get the corners nice. So that's much better. So sometimes you need to actually get underneath the lining just to get this all turned through. Go. So we got 2 done there. Let's get the other guys. This one's being a pain. Sometimes you just kind of gotta manipulate it. Let's get in there from just the inside of the bag. All right, I think that'll do it. I think that will do it. So we are turned. Our corners are good. Final step of this bag is to stitch closed this opening. So I'm gonna kind of turn this so we have some access to it. So what you're gonna want to do is to either hand stitch, which has actually been my preferred choice just because it ends up not having that stitch line, but honestly I should just be machine stitching it. So you want to kind of get that lined up, maybe give it a press, and either take it to your machine and just stitch a line really close to that edge to close it up, or you can come in there and hand stitch it. What is it called? A ladder stitch, I believe, is when it's you can't see it. It's kind of an invisible stitch, and it makes it look really nice. But after that, you are done. You are good to go. There we go. And thank you guys for sticking with me through all of that. Hopefully it was helpful. Hopefully it wasn't too rambling. But honestly, I believe very much in showing each step in case it helps. So feel free to ask any questions. If you need help for a certain point or don't understand something, I will try to keep tabs on the comments. And other than that, thank you guys. Happy bag making.